Welcome back to another outdoor philosophy. So we're going to continue another section in the Lucifer Principle, and this individual section talks a lot about isolation. It talks a lot about the entire section is actually on why humans self-destruct. And there are five little chapters in here. So the first chapter, now I had a lot to say on the Christian view. This is the most destructive chapter to the Christian thought, and I'll go ahead and card the video there so you can follow along on that video if you want to see a more spiritual discussion on this part. But as far as what we want to talk about with philosophy, there's some great things that we can pull in and apply to our lives here. And so the five chapters here are, first is the theory of individual selection and its flaws and its thoughts. Yeah. Yeah, well, I am waiting for some thawing. It is late March and it is past spring and we have snow on the ground, so I am waiting for thaw. But the individual selection and its flaws, and that in and of itself just kind of talks, that's more scientific and more philosophical and more religious. We're not going to dive into that one very much. They do talk about the superorganism, and I think at this point here is where I want to start talking about the outdoor philosophy portion. Then we have isolation is the ultimate poison. Even heroes are insecure, and loving the child within is not enough. And so what we're going to do is, like I said, I'm going to skip over the first chapter because there's a whole lot in there that I could talk about with science and a whole lot of mention in there on the Christian video there. But we're going to skip ahead to the superorganism, because what this entire section is about is how individuals, whether those be individual cells or individual people, produce themselves together, combine themselves together to produce a colony, a society, a civilization, or whatever it happens to be. And the next section, that is just kind of how that organization naturally happens. But the next section is about isolation as the ultimate poison. And I thought that this was some of the best stuff to talk about in terms of the outdoor philosophy. Because what this part tends to discuss and tends to say is that we are social beings at some level. Now, some of us are introverts, some of us are extroverts, and we have to learn how to live in the world with all of that. I'm definitely a more introverted person. I can talk for hours and hours in front of a camera. Put me in a room full of people, I don't talk as much. But, you know, that's okay. But the reality is, each of us needs to have some degree of social interaction. Now, a lot of people have been talking about this, and this is where I'll tie this into the Switch to Linux channel, computer tech, etc., is that we have this general trend right now where we're asking these questions. You know, is dating on an online dating app just as good, or is it any good at all as meeting somebody out in the real world? How do we, as you know, as we're gamers, as we're online, as we're interacting with social media, as we're just on YouTube watching videos of people that we've never met in person, is this good or is this not good? Do we need to have human interactions, or do we not? And I'm going to boil it down with a couple of fascinating things. I think that we need some small degree of human interaction. If you're more extroverted, you need more of that. If you're more introverted, you need less of that. But I don't want to completely dismiss the power and the influence of online community, because as I have been doing freelance web design work for 8 years, I have actually only met a couple of the people. I have done thousands of dollars in business with people I have never met in real life. We've communicated on the phone, we've communicated on Skype, we've communicated on email, but never once that I know of were we in the same city, and never once did we ever sit down, have coffee, talk, chat, or watch a game. You know, whatever that happens to be. And so I don't want to completely dismiss that, because as a person who is more introverted and who doesn't necessarily run in very large social circles, quite intentionally, I have to say, I gain a lot of support and a lot of gratification from the online community. You know, to see the same people over and over commenting. You feel like you really do know some of these people. I mean, I know people all around the world right now. I know about their ages. I know a lot about their personalities, who they are. And, you know, nothing that would compromise national security, but, you know, in light of that, you gotta get the chance to know each other. I know you know, just some shout outs on Anna Rita's up in up north of my border, up there, and I know what they do for an occupation and their family structure. I mean I know Carbon Programmer is a high school student interested in programming out west, and I know what state, but you know, I'm not gonna drop exact locations here on this video. And pizza is up there, up by Microsoft area, you know, and that kind of stuff. And there's just so many different people out there that I know a lot about, and it does produce itself an online community. And that type of online community can indeed lead to offline friends. There's people, I know of at least 2 people that watch my videos fairly regularly that are right in my town area. Now, we've never actually gotten down for coffee. And yeah, if you're watching this, yeah, shoot me an email. Let's meet up for some coffee. There's some great coffee shops in town. We meet up for some coffee. But that's the type of thing, you know. The social interaction, and as our society moves and shifts from this more offline to a more online world, it is definitely worthy of consideration. Now, I don't think that the online world has a lot of challenges, and that's something that I'm planning on talking about probably yesterday. By the time this video is out, I want to talk about some of the challenges with the online world and the online life. But at the same token, it does carry with it several benefits. Because, for example, if a person is a shut-in, it used to be if you were a shut-in, you couldn't move, you couldn't navigate, you couldn't do any of those things. You could still have a good, thriving online community and online social interactions without having, you know, everything else out there to consider. So there's a lot of really good things that you can say. There's a lot of stuff that you can that you can do in an online setting. So it's not an either or. It's not a, oh, we need to get off the internet and meet people in real life. And it's not, oh, we need to meet people online and not in real life. And so what this section talked about is isolation, the ultimate poison, talks a lot about losing your influence, losing your power. So, for example, the channel Daddy05, which kind of went belly up. Now, probably for a very good reason. In fact, I'm not going to say probably. For a very good reason. The dude was abusing his children on camera for views. All right? That's a slimy thing. But as he loses that channel, it's possible he could plunge into depression. Now, according to the phenomenological views expressed in this section, people who experience that will encounter a lower immune system, more health problems will arise. You know, heart disease, they said of one study that looked at 250, I think it's 257 different people who had recently died, over like 175 of them had a recent loss in serious human interactions, whether that be the loss of a spouse, the loss of a close human friend, or the loss of a social position or a job. This is why when particularly we as men, sorry, we're going to be sexist for a little bit, but the reality is men are more focused on what we do, women are more focused on relationships as a broad generalization. Science shows that. Psychology shows that. It's nothing sexist. It just happens to be. And there are obviously exceptions to all of that. This is why this channel, which is mostly about computer and tech, has a 98% male viewership and a 2% female viewership. I mean, for crying out loud, and I would expect that if somebody's doing makeup channels, they probably have an overwhelmingly majority female viewers. It's just a reality of our society. But as that goes, a man who loses his job oftentimes will lose his health at the same time. A woman who loses their relationships will often go through a lot of health problems. And so there's this balance in that one of those subtle differences between men and women. And of course, those are broad generalizations. So with that being said, the isolation factor is one of those things that tends to hurt us. And if we isolate ourselves entirely, now if we're isolating ourselves into an online community, that's a great thing. There is a lot that can be said for having an online community, whether you play World of Warcraft or whether you play, I don't even know what people play online. I apologize, I'm just not a gamer. But whether you do that, whether you are, follow YouTube channels, whatever those interactions happen to be, those interactions are all good. And if you pull those things away, you start to hurt. And that's kind of the reality he's talking about. And so what is the take-home message? Well, ask yourself those questions. Do you need more actual, real human contact? Or are you okay with the social interactions that you have as you have them? And that is kind of the viewpoint. So that's kind of what he's talking about with the isolation and the ultimate poison. Now, he moves on into the next section, talks about even heroes are insecure, where this is something that people of fame and notoriety can experience. A lot of people who become very famous or very wealthy experience this intense depression. In fact, one of my favorite poems, I know I'm kind of a dark guy, but one of my favorite poems is Richard Cory. And of course, Richard Cory is this poem about this wealthy guy, and everyone loves him. I wish I had the text in front of me, but everyone loves him, and and because he's like, not loves him personally, but everyone aspires to be him. Everyone wants to be like him. He's the wealthy guy. He's the guy that lives in the beautiful house. Think the richest guy in your neighborhood. Everyone looks at it and goes, man, if I had that wealth, I'd be so happy. If I had all this. And the poem ends. Then one calm summer night, Richard Cory went home and put a bullet through his head. Because it's the loneliness of the isolation of the wealth, of the power, of the influence. And when you gain that level where you have to guard yourself a little bit more for whatever those reasons, and you understand why. A person who accumulates too much wealth is a person who has the possibility of having all sorts of psychos come out of the woodwork for no other reason than the fact you have a big fat target on your back from having a lot of money. That's why it's good if you are accumulating a lot of wealth, just don't let people know about it. Wear $15 Walmart shoes and jeans with holes in the knees like I'm wearing right now. That's the thing. I'm not overwhelmingly wealthy, though, unfortunately. But regardless, they're talking about even heroes are insecure because they comes with it, with that degree of isolation. And then just telling ourselves things are good doesn't solve the problem. That's the final point. The comforting or calming the inner child is, I forget the name of that chapter. I just closed the book. But telling yourself it's okay, speaking to yourself, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself, like some people would have you chant, it doesn't do anything. So you have that kind of dichotomy, that kind of balance in the middle of it all. So those are kind of the things I want to talk about on this outdoor philosophy. If you gain a lot of comfort from your online community is not a bad thing. If you gain it from the offline community, great, the offline community. There's a lot that you can do one way or the other. So those are those types of things to keep in mind. Carry on those communities. Don't rely too heavily on one. Don't rely too heavily on the other in this age. But at the same token, realize that separating yourself from any community could potentially cause some health issues. So that's kind of the part of this chapter on the outdoor philosophy. So thanks for watching. You can help support the channel at switchtolinuxcom.com/support. There's links there for Amazon and for Patreon and for PayPal. On Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/Tom M. That's where you can help support me on all my channels. And there's some extra things over there. And then also, if you want to get things like this awesome t-shirt or a few other odds and ends, you can check out shop.switchtolinux.com. That's going to forward you over to Spreadshirt. And then you can pick up something over there. So thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.